Shabbat Shalom, everybody. This is Rob Shmuel with you with this week's Torah portion, our Parsha. Rob Shmuel, Rabbi Stephen Samuel Epstein, Rob Shmuel, Ben Yehoshua. Yes, Rashbi, here we are. And thank you very much for joining me. And I'd like to, of course, give a shout out and thanks to my wife, my lovely wife, Rachel, who has touched up my hair, made me camera ready, and my beard, made me camera ready. You know, I I don't really give her enough credit. I talk about a lot of people when I do my little podcasts or vlogs, whatever they're called these days, with the Torah. And I talk about my daughter. I talk about a congregation. I've talked about some of my students, but I really don't give credit to my wife. She stands behind me. She has stood behind me all my adult life, and I'm very grateful for her. She keeps me in check. Those that know me know I need to be kept in check every now and then. It's just who I am. So it is what it is. So thank you, Rachel, for all you do for me and for us. So before we start talking about the Parsha, one more thing. First of all, Happy New Year to everybody. Happy secular New Year to everybody. My understanding is that in Israel, they don't really January 1st is just another day. I read that somewhere. Maybe that's changed. Maybe they do. Maybe it's the same. I don't know. But of course, we Jews, our new year is in the fall. It's Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur. It's a very special time where we take stock of who we are. We get very spiritual. We get very introspective and look at ourselves and who we are as moral and ethical beings, humans, and we want to do better the next year. We always want to do better. That's why God created us, in my mind, to do better, to grow, to make this world a better place, to make it a heaven on earth. That's the whole idea. So we look very much to fulfill that mission. Another thing that I'm seeing is the globalization. How could I say this? The widespread application of Jewish concepts and Jewish ideas to the world. I was listening on a newscast. Somebody from a Christian organization was talking about their values, about helping the poor, about accepting strangers, and I'm thinking, these are Jewish concepts. They are. They come from the Torah. I'm glad they're espousing them, but Jewish values are so general about not gossiping, not demeaning people, and I wish politicians would stop calling each other names. To me, it's just not befitting of somebody who's a leader, to be down in the mud like it was a third grade recess playground. I just, I do it myself every now and then, and I do my best, to catch it. We're better than this, folks. Let's look at 2026, and let's really demand more of ourselves, more of our leaders, more of our lives. Let's look around the world and see what we can do. And sometimes, maybe helping groups is not, it's bigger than we can think. So interact with people one on one. Somebody says something, just, let it go. It's not a big deal. Let it go, right? Don't get involved in the mud. Just be better than that. Stand up for yourself. Oh, don't sacrifice your self-esteem and your standing, for sure. But at the same time, let's not be petty about it. Okay? All right. Let's talk about Shemot. New book, right? New year, new book. Okay? Exodus. Shemot, names. Why? Because 70 names went down to Egypt. Went down because Canaan is a higher elevation, and also because there's a certain spirituality that they were leaving that Egypt just didn't really have. They worshiped forces in nature. They worshiped things in nature, the sun, the moon. The sun god was real popular in Egypt, as I understand it. Okay. So they were going down, and a new Pharaoh arose that did not know Joseph. So the Torah, as we've discussed, can be very vague and obscure at times, or very general. Okay, what does it mean he didn't know Joseph? Well, everybody knew Joseph. They knew who he was, but he didn't know him as a person, an Egyptian dignitary, okay? Didn't know him as a Hebrew that basically saved Egypt. What he did know was Egypt. Now, there's a couple of ideas as to what that really means. Some people say Pharaoh knew who he was. He was just trying to consolidate his power by doing what lots of leaders have done in the past, by finding a common enemy and rallying people around them. 70 souls went down to Egypt, and after many generations, 100 years, whatever it was, you got 2 million people. You know, they're multiplying. They're going to take us over. They're going to control Egypt. Now, Rabbi Dr. Hertz, in his Hertz Chumash that we use in our synagogue, is very historical and very archaeological in his commentary, which I personally really enjoy. He said that it was a change of a dynasty. The dynasty that was in power when Joseph arrived in Egypt he calls them the Hyksos conquerors. They were veteran conquerors that basically came into Egypt and took control, made themselves the pharaohs, the kings, and that was the dynasty. Well, after Joseph died, I guess their hold on Egypt kind of loosened, and a native dynasty was able to kick them out and take control again. Well, when that happens, what happens? You get xenophobia. You get people that, oh, see what these foreigners did, see how they tried to take control, but we got them. And all these Jews, they're not Jews yet, right? They're Israelites. Jews are descended from the tribe of Judah. These were Israelites, the descendants of Jacob or Israel. Look at them. They came. They were friends of the other dynasty. They're going to join with any other conquerors and conquer us so they can take control again. Israel could care less. They were happy. They were shepherds. They, do what you want to do. And they were actually, a lot of Israelites were part of Egyptian society. They were molded in. And this Egyptian pharaoh, presented them as a threat, consolidated his power, and hey, a whole new slave force. Now, the idea of the slave force is something that a lot of people discuss too. Some people say, well, Israel, Jews built the pyramids. Other people say that we started out as slaves, an easy labor force, right? That eventually Pharaoh really wanted to work us to death, hence the labors. I mean, think about it. When God taps Moses to go back, hey, look, you were Egyptian royalty, you were never really a slave, but you are a Hebrew. You're the perfect person to go back to Egypt and tell Pharaoh, who was really kind of a member of your family in a way, your adopted family, let my people go. You have that standing. Nobody else does. So you're in the perfect position to do that. Okay. And Moses goes, he joins with his brother Aaron. They confront Pharaoh, and Pharaoh says, oh, so you want to let the people go? I'll tell you what, I got a better deal for you. How about if we make work a lot harder? How about that? And you can enjoy the fact that because of your attempted intervention, that now they get to make bricks without straw. They have to get their own straw. Now, if you're trying to build pyramids or something, don't you want to make it as easy and as efficient as possible to make the best buildings? So maybe that wasn't all of it. Okay. So this was part of Pharaoh's method or plan to break the back of Israel and to get us into submission. Okay. So here we are. We've got a very hostile king, and now Judaism begins. Okay, we get to where it's the start of a whole new era. So this is Shemot. And we're going to find and look at the progression. We had Adam and Eve. We had Noah with the 7 Noahide commandments. We had Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob that recognized the importance of the one true God. We had Joseph. We have the other 12 brothers that become the ancestors of the 12 tribes. And now we're going to get Torah. We're going to get God's teaching, how to teach Torah on earth. In a way, and maybe this is a radical assessment, Judaism was never meant to be really a religion. It was meant to be a counter to the way people treated other people back then. Let's have some humanity. Let's have some ethics. Let's have a way to worship a God that is loving and caring and giving and wants the best for us. Let's have laws that are fair to everybody, that even leaders have to abide by. Of course, leaders have to be, obey. I mean, they're responsible for managing people, but let's do it in a fair way where it's just not the will of some idiot, sorry, that just wants to take control. And that's what Judaism is really about. I think it's only later, in contrast to some of the other systems of worship that have arose, that we've decided that, okay, it's a religion, which it kind of is. But my point is this: the concepts are universal, as you've seen people adopting. I've seen Christians adopt the idea of Shabbat. Why not? Right? Why not have that day of rest? Turn off your phones, etc., which is what my wife and I are doing now. So if you try to reach me on Shabbat, you won't get me. Okay? Hey, Shabbat Shalom. Thank you for listening. And of course, again, Happy New Year.